And now it is my distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce a good friend, somebody who I've watched up close for many years, especially as Director General of Foreign Ministry, Ambassador in England, many other positions, but most importantly, as the courageous spokesman at the United Nations. Not an easy job to be the Israeli ambassador, but he did it with great ability, great distinction, and it's my privilege to present Ambassador Ron Prosor.
Well, you know, first of all, it's much nicer to address this crowd than the one at the United Nations. And especially with so many judges here, I'd like to start by saying the following, that in the United Nations, there are not really double standards towards Israel, or the Jewish people, but there are triple standards. There's a standard for democracies, there's a standard for dictatorships, and there's a special standard for Israel. Now I'd have to substantiate it, right? So until the year 2000, very few people know, Israel is not part of any regional group at the United Nations until the year 2000. What does it mean? It means that Israel cannot participate in any committee, cannot be elected to any position. Israel basically is part of the family of nations, but maybe second or third class. Interesting, Africa didn't want us, Asia didn't want us. And then there's a surprise, a good man, Richard Holbrooke, who basically at the year 2000 says, hey guys, you want to enter our country club, which is the West European and Others group? That's very nice. He pushes it forward, and it's a very nice country club. All the Western European countries, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and the others, Israel. But there's a small thing, a small caveat there. You guys want to enter our country club, wonderful tennis clubs and a swimming pool? Well, you'll have to tell us, condition it, that for 3 consecutive years, you're not allowed to bid on any position or any committee, because we might lose our cycle here. There's a big discussion in Israel about that. I'm, one of those aggressive young diplomats that says, we should not agree to that. This is absolutely a humiliation. David Levy was then Israel's foreign secretary. I can tell you that he said what we won't get today, if we don't get this today, we won't get it tomorrow. And Israel, since 2000, basically 3, is eligible to even, submit to committees and other stuff. And then in the presence of lawyers and judges, there's the Council on Human Rights. Now, the Council on Human Rights is like having Jack the Ripper run Scotland Yard. It's having Syria and Libya chair this organization as we speak, Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. And, but that's nothing. In the Council of Human Rights, there's an agenda item 4 that deals with human rights violations all over the world, Prosecutor Ocampo. And there's a special Article 7 that singles only one country in the world, and that is Israel. Don't be shocked. It's told you triple standards. Article 4, human rights violations for all over the world. 7 singles out only Israel. So I go to my good colleague, the representative of her Queen Elizabeth II, and say, Sir Mark, I love British ambassadors, they always have, the Sir. I was thinking always, Sir Ronald Prosor of Tsuradasa. You need a place. And I say, hey Mark, why are you singling me out? Am I not good enough at least to be with a crowd with North Korea, Libya, and Syria? I can up my game a bit. There's no real answer. Now, when you take all this and you sit and you say, I represent the state of Israel and the Jewish people with a judiciary system led by a courageous judge, Chief Justice Dorit Beinish, I have to be ashamed? On the contrary, I'm proud of who we are and what we are under the circumstances that we live in the environment that we live in, that doesn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, I missed maybe something, doesn't include countries like Liechtenstein and Luxembourg in our region. And when I look at that, and I see under all these circumstances how still, with all the pressures, the Israeli society, how we work, and yes, we do mistakes, but how delicately we try and deal with the situation around us. Well, there's always the cry for quick responses, and how mature we're trying to behave in the region. And for me, I was born for the state of Israel. It wasn't a dream for me. It wasn't something that I looked for. My father, Ulrich Proskauer, who was born in Berlin, came to Israel in 1936. For him, this was, was a dream. And I can tell you that when I look at the way he taught me, and I taught my children, in the sense, I taught them not just not to forget, but to act in a way that people can relate to and respect, even at the toughest times. And when I tell you that I talk about triple standards, you see the demonization and delegitimization that is done towards the state of Israel, and it's slow. It's like Chinese torture. It's drop, 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 which then accumulates and creates a situation where lies and half-truths become reality if you don't challenge them. You have to challenge them again and again and again, because people don't know. And when I sit in the Security Council and I hear the stuff that is said about the state of Israel, the only way you can really try and fend it off is to use either humor or sarcasm to try and relate, to tell people, hey, those are really triple standards. So it can begin with something, a committee that sits, headed formerly by Chavez, and after a year of deliberations come to the Security Council and present their conclusions, and they say, and I nearly quote, after 1 year of deliberations, we could not conclude why the Palestinians built the tunnels. So I stood up and I said, well, I have an idea. Maybe they wanted to build a new metro system in Gaza. And as the former ambassador to the United Kingdom, all I could say is mind the gap. But the issue here is to basically look and say, hey guys, this is ridiculous, look at yourself. And Malcolm talked about it, and I'm sitting and hearing this. First, the Saudis chair the Conference on the Status of Women. Well, that's interesting. And then they decide, I'm telling you all, it's making it funny, but guys, this is the truth. And then they decide to condemn one country in its attitudes towards women. Is it Iran? No. Afghanistan? No. Saudi Arabia? No, it's Israel. And I look at this, and I look at stuff where in the year 2012, Iran chairs the Non-Proliferation Committee. The World Health Organization decides in a vote of 107 against 4 that Israel creates a health hazard in the Middle East while everything around us is going on, with Israel with an amazing medical system. And then it's hard for Israelis to come forward, to really look and see and say, hey, we're not getting a fair treatment here. And how do I connect it to today? Because being the former ambassador to the United Kingdom and seeing the elements today in the Labour Party in your face, and blatant anti-Semitism. It's not, under the carpet. It shows that people are crossing the red lines, vocally. And the answer to them is to invite them all to be with us today, here. To invite them for the march tomorrow. Because only through education, only through seeing exactly what happened, only through education will we be able to create a situation where children and grandchildren will be able to be tolerant to others, to other religions, other minorities. And this is how we live in Israel and how we want our children, at least me, to live with our neighbors in the future. Thank you very, very much.